but I could share it with Lori so she could catch up if she wanted to too. Um, okay. So like I was saying, I agreed to chair and I want to be efficient about our time. And I've done a fair amount of strategic planning, but I know y'all have done things too, and y'all have perspectives too. So I want to help as much as I can create a roadmap, but I want y'all to be honest with me to be like, this doesn't look like the right roadmap or the right road or whatever, or like slow down or stop or let's go a different direction because I want us to be a team here, and that's really important in doing work of strategic planning. Um, so, but looking at Pam's document and having been in all the meetings in the last year about working with her and the board, it's a lot that we could talk about tonight. So I just wanted to put some structure around where we could lead our discussion so that we can feel like good about using our time and that we go away with a direction. How does that sound?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, because I don't know about you, but Pam's document was long. And then I went back and reread everybody's comments, and I got more comments sent to me personally by several people. And my cat is yelling at me. And so like, what do we do with this? And now we're a team. What are we doing? So this is just to organize my thoughts. So I thought we would start by just really briefly, maybe a phrase or a sentence, say what comes to mind when you think of what are your hopes for this strategic planning team. Does anything immediately come to mind? It could be something general or something like, I want us to come out with a 3-page strategic plan.
I think having a vision for where we want to go in the future. This is, I think, I was trying to think this morning, I think this is my 7th year of working on a 5-year plan. And, you know, it would just be, now COVID was in there, so, you know, give us a break on that. But I think we sometimes struggle to really figure out who we want to be. And I mean, going back, and I mean, most of you have a longer history with Caroline Furnace than I do, but it seems to me like at a point in time, we were a camp, and that was pretty much it. And we did camp, and we've become kind of a camp and retreat center, which is great. And I think it's given us a lot of benefits, but we kind of have this question of who are we really trying to serve, you know, with our retreat function. And, you know, it's kind of, you know, we get different groups in there and it works, and that's great. But I think, you know, we kind of work with whoever fits our mission and can pay the bills, honestly, is how it feels sometimes. And it would be nice to get away from that and be able to say, this is really who we're aiming for, and this is, and it may be something that it's longer than 5 years before we really hit that goal of who it is we're serving, but we at least have an idea of where we're headed.
Right, like a target.
Along those lines, I think mine's a cop out, but I'm going to say it anyways. But I was thinking vision as well, but like a structured, actionable vision that we act upon and organize. Like I would, you know, agree with what Todd said. It feels like we've worked on a lot of things for a long time that we'd never really finished.
Well, I'll cheat and crib both of what y'all just said, because those were the two things that I was thinking about. I think if this group, this small team, can put a proposal together for other people to react to with regards to a mission, a vision, those really big identity and like purpose questions, I think we will have done a significant thing. So I would love if we could do that, even though that feels a little intimidating to me. I think the other thing that I would really like is just a timeline. I see this page in here in Pam's plan about implementation on page 35, and it's some steps. I'm not sure I agree that these are the steps or that this is the order we should take them in. And I see multiple comments from people. If we can come up with a, as you said, Brett, a roadmap, an actual set of directions to get some small groups working simultaneously, I think we'll be in really great shape.
Yeah, I agree.
So to summarize,
go ahead.
Vision and timeline.
I agree. I'm glad to hear y'all come up with, and it sounds like we're in similar places about what we want to head toward. And for y'all all to say in some words or others, like we need to be a little clearer on our target and on our mission and on our vision there, whatever. And that will help us with the goals. I'll say that I think, and I was sitting in that last set of meetings with Pam at the end of September, thinking that we need the mission and vision piece to be able to move away from what has felt like a catch as catch can sometimes, and maybe is also hard on our staff, I wonder, so that we really clearly say, this is Caroline Furness's focus, and this isn't, and to support that. And so that may help, because I mapped out in my meeting outline here some possible directions, but it sounds like we may have one. Are there other specific reactions to the document from Pam? I'll start on this one. I'll start by saying, and I said this in one-on-one emails to some people, and I may have said it to this group, but what she sent us is like a consultant's report, an analysis. It's not a strategic plan. And in some ways, it isn't that incisive about like, here are your real strengths, your real winning things to not lose sight of, and here are like some critique or some like areas of real need or those kind of, it is in there, but it's like there's so much in there, in my opinion, that it kind of loses sharpness there. So I think that this works more like a resource document than as I was hoping that it would be kind of the like giving us 2 or 3 options, but that it would be the roadmap to lead us to the strategic plan, is what I was hoping for. I think the engagement level with the comments from the people that we shared the document with, whether that's current board members, the former board members, and the staff, was really good, given especially how long of a document is. And I don't know about y'all, but like, I can't get church council members to read anything. And the fact that people sat down and read this long ass document and like commented on page 35, like that's a big deal. And that shows that people really care and that people came to all these meetings. We had how many meetings? That is a good marker. And I think actually that's an important thing not to lose sight of here. But so I guess I'll say at the outset, I want to know your thoughts about this document. I'm not trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater or bring us back to square one. We're not at square one. What we can do from here, I think, and because we have had the input and conversations, and I think Pam's gift was she really helped people feel heard in this process, at least some people. Now we can take that, and my hope is like yours, Alexandra, that then we can put forward, like figure out as a small team and put forward a proposal of a mission, vision, and then actionable, delegated plan from there. What do y'all think about process and this document and all the comments.
I think you've hit it on the head. I mean, first of all, it feels very overwhelming. I almost wonder if in some ways she would have been better off to send the executive summary and leave it at that, because there is a lot of information in there. And it also, at points in time, it almost feels a little bit canned. How many of her clients are getting kind of the same thing, and she's changing it here and there, not to but and so I think that probably I'm a little disappointed that it didn't get us a little further down the road, and I think we all kind of went into it expecting that, but here we are where we are. And I think you're right. I think we do have kind of a better focus of where we want to go and what we need to do. And now, let's come up with that plan and start to execute on it.
Others' thoughts?
I totally agree.
I agree with everything. Oh yeah, you go ahead.
No, Brian, this is tough being on the phone, so I apologize for stepping on your toes. You go for it.
No, it's fine. I'm on my phone too. I don't know. I don't. There are parts in here that are helpful. I think we pull those parts out, but I've had it described to me as a textbook, and I would agree with that. And that's not what we needed. And so, but I think Todd's right and Brett's right that it started us. We're not at square one, but we got to do the work now of getting us where we needed to be at the end of this, or should have been at the end of this. I don't know what the right words are, but yeah.
Alexandra?
Yeah. I agree with all three of y'all, and I think you're a little more diplomatic than I am, because I'm disappointed in this document. We poured an awful lot into this process, and part of me feels really bad that we asked our former board members to come up here and make this kind of investment of time, and we don't have the product that we had kind of told them we would have at this stage. But I do agree with you, Brett, that I think that the professions themselves were really helpful, and I think gave us a real sense of being on the same page. And that page is more than 50 years in the making. So that's no small feat. I just am a little intrigued by how much is left to do. But I agree with all y'all that I think mission and vision has to be where we start in order to do much of the other pieces. So it's not impossible. It's just a bummer.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Also, I want to say, I think that we need to not be diplomatic in doing strategic planning. We need to be really honest and be unafraid to, and I'm glad for the personalities on the screen, as much as I know y'all, that I think y'all are folks that can do this, because it does mean taking a hard look, because strategic planning means saying no to some stuff. And means being really honest. And I think strategic planning works best when you can float big ideas and you can also shoot down others, and that we can walk away from that knowing that we're gonna, the goal is the vitality of this organization that we love and this place and ministry, not our own individual, whatever. So we're gonna do good with this. I trust y'all to be honest. Yeah.
I was just being diplomatic because I looked over when it was my turn to talk and saw a little one, so I figured I'd better.
Right. Yeah, true. If they're little ears, then watch our language.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I need to. How do I say this?
Sound nice. Right, but
yeah. I will say I don't feel like we wasted time, but I'm also pretty disappointed um, with
Yeah.
the result of what we got. And but you know what? There's been a lot of um, disappointments and not expecting what we're getting throughout Caroline Furnace's history and the church's history and everybody's history. So I think we take a positive step and just say, well, we got what we got. Let's make, well,
Mhm.
Yep.
I shouldn't say that, but
Well, but
we'll make the most of it.
yeah, you're right.
Hmm.
But doesn't it feel good to be able to hear from others like, yeah, this isn't what we wanted? Like that makes you feel not crazy and like a little more
Yeah.
affirmed. And I think that would saying things like that too, like this isn't enough, helps a staff feel like, oh, okay, they're on my side, or we're going to work together on this, or
Yeah.
somebody's got my back because I can't do this all on my own. Like you can't take something like this and then and also, I think something as broad and really just a resource textbook, like you said, here, it doesn't create a vision that people can rally around and then like be really clear
Mm.
on. And so we need that. I wonder if Pam, and she did reach out to us, Alexander, like a week ago, and I didn't respond
Oh,
yet because
yeah.
I wasn't sure how. But like in some of the sidebar conversations we had with her, she had sharper insights. They didn't come out in this document. And I wonder if she saw a very like spread culture that she wasn't gonna like take that direct approach, or if that's just not her style.
Yeah.
Who knows? But this is where we are. So I think I put in the doc where to go from here, what's ours to do, what's not. It sounds like the four of us are on the same page. So let me just keep going for a minute and then come back to this. I want to, you can tell me to shut up if you're like, Brett, you're not the teacher. But I want to introduce some strategic planning tools that I think could be helpful as we have
Great.
conversations. One of them is adaptive leadership concepts. Is anybody familiar with adaptive leadership? No. Okay, here's what it is. It's sorting the difference between technical fixes, which have a clear solution. They may not be easy, but somebody can fix them. And they often get fixed by authority, like whether you personally in your job have the authority to change what database you use, or your boss tells you to. That's a technical fix. This is as opposed to an adaptive challenge, which does not have a clear solution, but involves culture or belief change. And it involves implementation over time by all the people involved. Often organizations burn people out and resources because they're focused on technical fix after technical fix, when what they really need to do is they talk about an adaptive leadership. Stop, go up and take the balcony view, imagining your organization like a dance floor and looking at it from above and saying like, oh, that's why this didn't work, because actually like this whole part over here is dancing to reggae and this part over here is dancing to techno or whatever. But it gets a view of the culture and the adaptive shifts that need to be made. And in this framework, they teach that making adaptive lasting change requires loss. It requires spending some social capital, but it makes you a healthier organization in the long term. I want to introduce this concept because I think some of what we need to do is identify what are the technical fixes that we need to make as an organization versus what are the adaptive challenges that we have. So for instance, we could say, A technical fix, I'm just pulling one out of my ass. This is not like, I'm not advocating this. A technical fix could be, we're going to build an adult hotel style facility. That's a technical fix. The adaptive challenge is, do we have the organizational culture that's going to fill that? And do we know who and why we would fill that, right? So that's a little bit, but like, so to think about what are our culture challenges. The other concept I want to introduce, which was from a strategic planning leadership thing I did a few years ago, was about how every organization has these three things, and they envision them like concentric circles. And on the outside, the biggest circle is the stories that everybody tells about your organization. And the middle circle, the inner one, is your practices and your behaviors that you do together. And then the center one is your beliefs and your values. And that in strategic planning and in evaluating how we're doing on our mission or goals, a helpful thing is for us to look at these and say, are the stories that we're telling matching what we say our values are, or are they misaligned? And are the practices helping support that? So I'm introducing that one because if we are going to tackle mission and vision, which I personally think we should, then we need to like for instance, the one that Pam put as an example in the document for a mission on page 6 is inspiring faith, increasing knowledge, offering renewal. Okay. Are those the stories that we tell, or that our practices all align that way? Also, as a side note, I've done a good amount of strategic planning. I don't personally really care that much or get hung up too much about the difference in jargon between mission and vision. There is a difference, but I don't think it matters that much. We can talk about what that is, but it should be that central thing that we agree or that we're driving toward. But if, like, so in our meeting notes for tonight, I put some examples from some other camps. And Lutherland, which is Pennsylvania, has on theirs, the church, this is their mission, the church in a place and time apart where Christ's love is experienced and faith is renewed. So that's a very faith-heavy mission. But then you would think everything they do would be out from there. So I put some examples in our document for tonight. Lutherland has a good, very short strategic plan. It's clear, it's succinct. The goals that they have are pretty broad, but also, and interestingly, they're right now working on a strategic plan or master site plan. So it seems that they just adopted the strategic plan and now they're working on a master site plan. And there's a survey on their website about it. Then there's Flathead Bible Camp. I just found these by Googling. I don't have any like particular connection or affinity. Flathead's vision is very congregation focused. So that's helpful because it's like, we're not everything to everybody. They specifically see themselves as a regional camp connected with congregations. And their strategic plan acknowledged challenges and changes facing camps today. They also have a linked master site plan that's a part of it that's brand new. And then Marley Ridges, with their mission and values, is they have these three key values, and then their strategic plan is goals that are each tied to the three values, which in some ways is closest to how my congregation ended up doing ours, which was values and goals focused more than mission focused, but we were in a very different place. But my congregation's strategic plan is 3 pages. And I think all of these examples, the longest one of the camps that I found, well, I found one that was like 15 pages, but a lot of it was like just pictures. So something that's digestible, that should be easily to be able to return to. That focuses people on your mission and vision, and then has longer range planning goals that get fed out to staff or teams from there. These are some examples of strategic plans that I think just could be helpful. We can add to this. This isn't like an exhaustive list, but if you aren't living in this kind of like headspace, it can be helpful to see some examples of what we might aim to, and we don't have to recreate the wheel, right? But these are all very different formats too. I've been talking enough. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah.
I think go ahead, Alexandra.
Brian, we gotta stop meeting this way. So
All right,
sorry.
yeah, exactly. Sorry about that. No, you go first this time.
I was going to ask a question, Brett. Everything you just laid out was really helpful, especially because I've also been through strategic planning processes, but in such a different context, I wasn't sure how they mapped. And so I appreciate the summary, because the strategic plans that I used at nonprofits have also been like 3 pages and only meant to cover 5 years, and have been really high level to direct the work that is done on a minutia kind of level for those 5 years. So that's a question that is coming up for me in this process for us. A lot of the stuff in what Pam sent that then people responded to, including myself, is very like next steps operational focused. Here's who we need to hire. Here's a gap that we need to kind of fill. And I don't think of that as strategy, although I do think we will be unable to fulfill strategy with, those operational gaps kind of unaddressed. So I think a question that's coming up for me is how much this team specifically should be focusing on identifying the operational needs that we should then go out and take care of as a group, and how much it's actually outside of the purview of this group to do that, and it's like up to the bigger group of the full board and the former board members even to think about the operational pieces, while this group is just thinking about mission, vision, goals. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
I mean, that kind of comes back to what you were saying earlier, Brett, about, technical fixes versus adaptive, right? I mean, it's really along that same line of, operational versus, strategy, technical versus adaptive. Are we trying to fix the cabins, or are we trying to, or change the culture? Maybe not fix it, or, just better communicate what our culture is, who we are, and who we're trying to be. I think those are both really good questions. Personally, if you're looking for an answer, I think we should be more strategy. So I'll throw that out there. Let me know if you all think we're wrong. And
I think my only thought is I'm very torn for a couple reasons, but it's strategic planning task force, so I think we should be strategic in our thinking and our planning. And I think we should stay away from the operational stuff. I'm also very afraid personally that if we don't at least recommend some operational things that whatever groups we're setting up for these jobs, say like a site plan,
Yeah.
with some recommendations of here's some things, here's just some starting points, or
Right.
recommendations, and then that group can scrap them or have a stepping stone. I think is kind of where I'm at. Of like, I do think we got to be very careful, but I don't want to just be another. Not that this is happens all the time. I just don't want to be another group full of ideas
Yeah. I agree.
that sound really good that nobody can act upon. Um, and then if I could just add one more quick thing personally,
Mhm.
um, I've really appreciated everyone in the strategic planning's input. I do think, and I'm going to be direct. I'll just say it.
Yeah.
I think we should be cautious of some of the former board members' ideas because they're not up to date like you are, like I am as a staff. I don't think they're bad ideas. I'm not saying that. I just think they they weren't really up to speed when we started this process, so they may have been solving problems from a couple
Mhm.
years ago that have already been solved. Is all I want to say to that.
Yep.
Yeah, totally.
Excellent point. One point.
Mhm. I mean, to be direct, I wonder, like, I think we are at a hard place in terms of organizational lifespan to be doing strategic planning because there are like immediate technical things that need to be done, as well as some pretty big, like, things on the horizon with staffing and all of that and executive director change. But um, I wonder if the lack of clarity or focus of a vision and mission has caused our staff and board to be in a wide variety of different places, not just two, but like 20, especially when you include former board members, about the goals and the priorities of camp. And I think that we, like, a lot of times you like technical fix try to like prioritize and address those, whereas if we can get people to rally behind a singular vision that will help us to say, cool, but that's not what we do, or like, cool, but that's pretty far down the list, or like, cool, but we're going to trust our staff to discern that, then that will, I think, get us a long way down the road. Alexandra, I think also it goes to our question about what's ours and not ours to do as a strategic planning team. And I think we need to be clear and transparent about that. And Brian, to your point, I wouldn't want to like hand this over to like delegate to some group or committee or staff amalgamation to say, all right, now make a master site plan without like some resources, some priorities, and also like a vision. Because I think without the vision of who we want to be, then we're going to continue to have conflict and like just a lot of variety. I personally like, and I'm relatively new to the board compared to like Todd, but I think what I've witnessed in Tom, just because Tom's primarily who we interact with as the board, and I would say staff in general, is people who are working really hard with a lot of heart to keep the mission going of the place. And that Tom has been open to making a lot of connections and like leveraging a lot of assets that we have, whether that's people or space or whatever, or like the local community. He's done a great job at that. But yeah, and it's not focused, or we're not clear what we're doing with that. So like, how do we help support him or whomever the executive director is in that, so that they're also not coming back to the board and being like, I have this great idea, and they're being like, but I thought we were doing this over here, because that's gonna create challenges as well. Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, Brett. Oh, sorry.
Or
Go ahead.
Alexandra?
No, oh, Alexander, you can go ahead.
Well, I'd love to hear your response first, Brian, as a staff member, because I think a lot of what you just said, Brett, is directly to that experience of being on staff.
I I'll just say first off, you don't have to beat around the bush. I know Tom can be a little bit of a scatter shot sometimes. I work with him, and I love the guy. But yeah, some days we're all over the place.
Well, and you have been to
But
keep the
I
place
would,
alive.
in all seriousness, you have to be. You have to be. In all seriousness, I mean, I was just kidding. All kidding aside, it does feel sometimes as if like we're trying to figure out the direction. And I don't know if that's a communication or, but like how it fits within the mission. And yeah, I think some, a clear mission, vision, values, and I do believe, with the mission statement we have now, we constantly look at it and say, are we within this? So, but is that where we want to be now? I don't know. And maybe I'm changing the subject a little bit. And if I am, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
But I would say I'm very interested. I'll echo Alexandra's of where's our can and cannots. Because we're within our, and this, if I can say, so, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to talk too long.
No, you're not.
Would
No, you're not.
be helpful from the board as multiple, from a multiple aspects to have like a document. I don't know if it's a governance document or a like your boundaries document. I don't know what you call that, but like I've had that asked for me when I do property team meetings. Like, what are we actually allowed to do? And I'm like, that's kind of a good question. What is this group allowed to do? And my gut is that at least this group kind of ask forgiveness instead of permission. That's just me, and that might not be everybody's style. But we'll say, hey, here's what we did. I think the board should, like, if we revise the mission statement, obviously it needs board approval. But if we take it to them and say, here's what we've done, I would hope they'd have input and work on it and not just say, okay, rubber stamp, it's good. And I don't think that would happen. I don't get that feeling that it would happen. But anyways, I rambled a little bit. I think some direction would be helpful. But I also think personally, we just go ahead and figure out a mission that we send to the board and then go from there.
Yeah. I think that it makes a lot of sense to draft them within this group and then have it go to the board or to whoever we want to have review it as a draft and say, here's the direction we're headed, give us some feedback. So I love that. And it's got me thinking about logistics. So forgive me if I'm jumping too far ahead into like what are our actual next steps. Because it sounds like we are on the same page, and it's been really helpful for me to think this through with y'all, that this task force needs to come up with a draft mission, vision, and even 5-year goals. Not the plan for how we're going to meet the goals, not the steps, but like, what are we aiming for in the real world? That's kind of the, like, if the mission and the vision is up in the balcony, like you said, Brett, then this is maybe like the, what's the thing in the theater that's there are like 2 layers of balcony and then the orchestra, whatever. It's the thing in the
mezzanine.
middle.
Yeah.
Mezzanine.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're going to provide maybe like a draft balcony and a draft mezzanine. We're not going to get all the way down into the orchestra of like, what are we doing? However, you said a second ago, Brett, that this is kind of a weird time to be doing a strategic plan with the transition that we have coming up. I think you're totally right. And I think one of the best things we could give an incoming executive director, interim or not, is that balcony and mezzanine vision,
Right.
meaning vision, 5-year goals. I also do think, though, like, so many of these operational things come up every time we have any kind of big picture conversation about Caroline Furnace, like adult facilities, like the age of our site and all of the work that needs to be done on it, like our need to bring in more revenue. And so I'm wondering if this transition task force that's kind of been thrown around as a, you know, people saying, oh, we need a transition task force to help figure out recruitment for the new executive director. I think that's right. But I wonder if we actually need to start that transition task force in January this year. And their focus for the next year is not on going out and recruiting a candidate. It's on identifying the short-term needs that we need to address operationally before we can bring in a new executive director, like we got to hire a full-time marketing person. We got to think about the age of our facility, like some of those operational things that just come up every time we have this conversation. And I say all of that knowing that that may not be exactly the right container or exactly the right next step, but also just like anticipating that if we roll up in January and we say, okay, as a task force, we will be doing mission, vision, and 5-year goals, and we won't be touching these things. I do think there's going to be some deserved anxiety from people who are like, these are really urgent needs.
Right.
And we're not setting ourselves for success if we discuss them now.
Right.
One thing, like they talked about at LTE is not. So I hear what you're saying. Like 5-year stuff is urgent. They're actually in like teaching what we're learning. The classes I go to is like 5-year plans are now almost obsolete because of how fast the world can change in 5 years. So it's really like it's like 3 to 5 years and 1 to 2 year plans.
Right.
So not trying to stress anybody out, but
No, totally. Yeah.
that's I think a valuable thing to keep track of, and I definitely think transition team is needed. But also, what I would like to say, yes, I think we need to be mindful of what we're handing the new executive director. But I would hope, like, mission, vision, values is beyond the next executive director, and should be reviewed every few years or so, and should be reviewed with a new executive direction. But like one thing we learned is like your mission is like 50 to 100 years from now. That's what's getting you down the road. So do we want to, like, the transition team might hypothetically want to hand them like a strong staffing model proposal that we want to work towards, or we have the facilities and maintenance plan, one of the two done, hopefully both done, but maybe not, I just don't know. But anyways, that's just some of my thoughts.
I agree about starting the transition team sooner rather than later, but I think as you're both identifying, some of the work that they could do is like to take off some of these like more urgent priority pieces, even to just start identifying them. They don't have to dive into them right away, but to say, all right, these are some of the things we're going to need to start to get organized on that. That'll take a little bit. And then watching our time too. So I had mapped out here, if y'all had come into this meeting and been like, we don't need to talk about mission and vision and values. Everybody agrees on that. We're super clear. Then I was gonna be like, okay, then let's work the other way of strategic planning, which is to do like identify adaptive challenges and work on a task-based plan. But I think, and I agree that this is the direction that we should go, that we actually should go from the mission and vision route. And I think to piggyback on what y'all were already identifying, I actually think that in terms of timeline, what we could do, the board next meets in January, end of January. Not sure we could do this before our next board meeting, but either before or after. What we could do is, as a team, I think we could, I've led it before, if you guys trust me to lead us in a process where we would like brainstorm, work together, collaborate, and like come closer in on those, on mission and vision. And then we share that with the board and staff and get some feedback. And then we take that and do that in such a way that it isn't reopening the can of worms to like, we're gonna revisit everything, but says, we've worked on this, we've prayed about it, we've heard everybody's thoughts, here's where we think we need to go first. Set the mission and vision, here's our idea, our proposal. What do you think? Then, and what does that make you dream about and get excited about how we could lay some tracks down the road about how we work together as camp, staff, and board. And then we come back as a strategic planning team and we come up with those goals, which maybe we've already started to get in mind, but we got some buy-in on the mission and vision. Then we come back and we get the goals together, and then we put that together as a strategic plan. I think we could do that in the next 6 months easily, with like 4 or 5 meetings. I could do it by myself. I could have somebody help me facilitate a little bit. We could do it all over Zoom. We could do 1 or 2 meetings in person. But I realize that could be hard. But coming up with like having the energy space to work on mission and vision might take a little chunk of time, like 3 hours or something, and we could get a lot closer with some tools and exercises that I could pull out. But that's kind of a framework that I would envision, and that would get us toward a plan like we're talking about. How does that sound?
I love
Sounds
this.
great. Yeah, I think it sounds great.
Okay. And we could, like, I know of some people in Virginia who have expertise in this and that I used at Muhlenberg who could help us for free, like facilitate some conversations. But I don't know that we would need it. I think the positive of the whole process with Pam is we've gotten a lot of buy-in, and now we've got to carry the ball and move it forward.
Right.
And so we can do that. So I think we're consensus agreed about that. We'll go from a mission vision place first, and then toward outlining a plan. And Brian, to your point, I totally agree, and I think it's best practice, especially with camps or anything right now. A 5-year plan, like in the 90s, where like you're like on year 5 we do XYZ, is not very realistic, but I think we can map out kind of the big picture vision pieces for how we live out that mission in a few year time range. And then what my congregation has been doing with our strategic plan is that then every year we set annual goals that are based on how we live those out. So our actual like actionable things are actually only on the 1-year timeline. But then, and we have that on a banner that we see it's in the sanctuary as you come in. So, and we check them off as we do them.
Nice.
Well, the
I
second
think one of my specific,
Yeah.
I think one of my
Go ahead,
specific like thoughts, I'm so sorry. um, was like and I don't know finances, Todd. This is more your realm, but she was talking about like a 4 to 5 year financial plan
Mhm.
when we don't know in 3 years. Like we can have those goals, but like what are the or wait, what we could have the vision for
Mhm.
4 to 5 years, but what are the goals for like 2 to 3 years? Um, I think is um one like that sticks in my mind, and there's other things too is and I don't want to come up with those. That I think that's more the financial team, but it would be nice to say like, hey, you know I mean, and maybe y'all already have them, Todd. You just tell me to be quiet. And
Nope,
um
we do not.
and
um,
so do we try to implement something that's more in 2 to 3 years? We're gonna you know I don't know. I don't know. Um, yeah, of course, it's easy to say increase revenue, but
right.
and I just don't want to
How?
dump that on somebody. Yeah, exactly. How? Um, so by donor development, and like here's how we're going to do that, and that's a part of the 2 to 3 year goals. I don't know. Um, I'm feel like I'm talking out of my rear a little bit, but I just think there's some actionable steps we can take, but then there's some oh yeah, in 4 to 5 years, our vision is to, um, I don't know. I can't even think of anything right now. I'm sorry. I'm distracted.
No, no, I don't think you need to think of anything right now, Brian. Like,
Yeah,
I don't think we have to. I'm not even sure we have to think of anything as
we don't have
this
to figure it
group
out.
because, again, when I think about, I mean, I know it's kind of I'll just use the example that you just threw out there, Brian, of like increased revenue, which is like everyone's goal, right? I think that although I would obviously want to tweak it a little bit, like I do actually think that's a fair goal to put in the goals that we come up with as a task force, whatever time frame we put on it, 5 years, 1 year, doesn't really matter to me. I think it's fair to say like, yeah, welcome new leadership. We are thinking a lot about increasing revenue and we'd like to come up with ways to do it together, Um, so I think some goal setting is fair game, I guess is what I'm saying. But I think that the operational piece for the next year of life of what do we urgently need to tend to, I don't think that has to be the purview of this task force. And I don't think it has to be the job of the, new executive director to come in and just like snap his fingers and clean up whatever. I guess I kind of picture these efforts working in parallel, Brett, with what you just
Yeah.
laid out of a 6-month timeline, where while we are coming up with mission and vision for the next 6 months, we also have other folks who are working on getting us to the best level footing that we can for this transition.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And things may shift in the future. I want to call out something which could be opening a can of worms, but maybe to like put a pin in for later, which is I actually think if we are honest, that some of our mission of the last few years, which is not a bad thing, has been increase revenue, stay alive, and replicate culture.
Yep.
And that's not a bad thing. Thank God, we made it through COVID. And here we are. And we've retained staff. We have, had summer camp. We have built a lot of things that we should be really proud of. And staying alive is a good thing. When we do strategic planning, though, oftentimes it's helpful to push back a little bit about increased revenue as a goal. Increased revenue is a tool. It is not a mission. What is and I think this is part of why I like it, or we need to be honest about that. Is our goal to increase revenue? But honestly, if you put that as a goal, you're going to have internal conflict because how do you do that? And what kind of
Right.
programs and in what way and with what kind of values do you do it? So,
Yeah. I think the question that needs to be answered is why. just
The
to
why.
increase revenue to, increase revenue. Well, why are you doing it? Well, we're going to increase revenue because we want to pay off the debt, or we want to build a new building, or we want to, okay, that makes sense. But
why?
yeah, and Brian, to your point, all of this has to kind of work together fluidly. The 5-year plan that the finance committee comes up with has to or should reflect whatever this committee comes up with. Operationally, let's face it, there are some things that we're just not going to get away from.
Right.
We're going to have summer camp unless something really out of the ordinary that we don't see coming happens. We're planning on having summer camp every year for the next 5 years. So we can talk about, okay, do we want to increase the number of campers? How are we going to do that? Why, same thing with retreat facilities. And I think where this group comes in is kind of looking at, taking retreat groups as kind of an example. Who do we want to market our facilities to? The group that's supposed to be coming, for the next couple of months, that's a great opportunity that we hadn't really talked about. That's something we want to explore and maybe go deeper into. And how can we do that? Or is that just something we're going to do in the slow season? And it's questions like that I think this group is going to be wrestling with.
Yeah, Todd, I think your top headline response on the document was really helpful, asking the question, who do we want to serve? I think starting with the why and getting people rallied around a central why is important. Brian? You looked like you were going to chime in.
Oh, no, I 100% agree. I know I was the one who said increase revenue, but then my next thought was or we just stay really strong where we're at, and how do we better use the resources that we do? And maybe I'm off base here, and that's fine. But I think, I agree it all ties together, because without site plans, how do we know what we need to bring in? There's I know the term, anyways, all this goes back to, I think we really need to focus on what we've already agreed of mission, vision, values.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for repeating myself.
You're not.
I apologize.
I think we just need to be honest with, go ahead.
And I think I know the term on the document was thrown out strategy neutral, I think is what it was. I don't think anything is neutral. I think they all come down from mission, vision, values, and they all kind of work together. And without a vision, I don't think any of them are just by themselves we can just hop into, personally.
I agree. Cool. I feel good about this, and we have consensus. So yeah, do we want to try to meet again before our next board meeting on January 27th? And or are there time horizons that you have in mind, Brian, that we should be aware of?
I was just going to say, I think I'm down to meet before the next board meeting, but
let's try.
I don't have any. If we can, I understand, but I just think it would be good to give a report, and I don't know how hard it is to even start the process of if we had started and have something to start to present to the board. That might not be possible in a month. Completely understand, but I think we also should have some lofty goals, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm willing to push myself a little bit to make sure do we see some. Not that I don't think this group is
to not just be another ideas.
I'm feeling pretty good about this group. So I'm just ready to rock and roll whenever you all are. So
We're gonna kick some butt and get it done, right? So like, let's try to
Let's
find
that's
a
go.
right.
meeting time before like maybe mid-January. I'll send out a poll. I'll do some
I'm
thinking.
free next Wednesday.
I'm flying to Spain. But anyway, uh, yeah, so we'll do that. I think, Brian, one of the key things that I have in mind is I think personally that, like, whereas, like, some of our specific comments or, like, but whatever, even in this team should, like, stay in this team so that this can be the place where good ideas, bad ideas go to die or take flight. But at the same time, I really want us to be super transparent. So I note that, Heidi really raised really prominently in our comments, and we know and care about the staff feeling communicated about. So I want to make sure that, like, I'm not assigning you homework right this moment, but I think we maybe should in the future or figure out how that happens between communication between this team and the staff so that they're looped in.
Sure. I'm happy to what I kind of told the staff, and I didn't really lay anything out, but what I told them is if they had ideas or thoughts that I would like to use my voice as not just my own, but like multiple staff members, if that's okay. Um,
Absolutely.
and but of course they can go on the document and fill their own out. But like Monica and I together at the table and like went through the whole document, and
I'm
she and I
glad
were
to do that.
pretty close on things. Like she read through it on her time, I read through it, and then we just went through and like what we highlighted. Um, so I'm happy to like report back whatever you all think is appropriate, and
I'm really
um,
glad to hear that. And I think it's fair game. Tell them whatever, like let them know how it's
okay,
going. Tell them, I think we can get the ball down the road a little bit before our board meeting on the 27th. And we will eventually, and as a part of this process, work too on how we communicate and in what channels. But right now, I think this should be a super open process. So we can get a little more done before that board meeting. But we could even say to people right now, yeah, we had a first meeting and we agree that, like, yeah, that was helpful, the process with Pam, but that wasn't all the way. And now we're going to work as a team on mission and vision. And we're going to be excited to share that with you, and that's where we're going to start. So we'll be talking to you soon about it, that kind of thing. How does that sound?
no, that sounds great.
Perfect.
Um, yeah, I'm happy to do whatever I can. The other thought, just so I know Brett, you had a hard 7:15 stop, so I
Yeah,
don't
I
want to
can go a
like
couple more minutes.
um,
Go ahead. Yeah.
but we have on the in the Google Drive
Mm-hmm.
there is and I'm sure you all have looked at it. Caroline Furnace Lutheran Camp and Retreat Center mission statement and core values document.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2 pages.
Yeah.
I would love to go over that as a group,
Okay.
um, personally. Um,
Maybe that should be homework for our next meeting, in addition to whatever, like that we come in having read that and looked at it.
and
Good
and
idea.
we can stop at any point in here, but like I've kind of gone over it as part of my like LTE
Yeah.
class, and there's just a lot in there that I think could use some help. I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it
Right.
needs to be reworked. I just um, there's some spots that I would like to see us work on. So
I really appreciate you bringing that up because we should start with the pieces that we already have, and it's faithful to, like, go back to those. Let's use it. Let's work on it, and you've been reflecting on it as a leader and a staff, in our thing, not church.
This is our church,
It
the
is
Carolina
church.
Furnace
All right.
Church.
I got Bible study at 7:30. That's why I gotta be off. But anyway, so yeah, that sounds good. So I'll send this recording to Lori if she wants to watch it and the notes we have here, and I'll send out a doodle poll to find a next meeting for us. Sound good? Cool.
Sounds great.
That would be
Thank you,
super
Brett.
helpful. Brett, I'm going to email you about how you and I should respond to Pam. And then I also will probably be leaning on this group a little bit to think about how we move the pieces that are not in the purview of this group forward. Because I just want to make sure we're setting ourselves up for success, moving like multiple things simultaneously.
That makes sense. Cool.
Cool.
Todd, bless us out of here.
Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace. Merry Christmas, guys.
Amen. Good night.
Merry Christmas. Good night.
Good to see y'all. I'm excited to be
Night,
working
y'all.
with you. Good night.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome.
Yep.
Thank you so much